We are live, gorgeous. We are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Grain, hopefully. Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
also good morning to everyone, whoever is going to join us live or recorded. Welcome to Moreness-Culture. And today we have Sunday live, which is one day live. Okay. We are going to continue with the capital R reading of Don Carlos. Understandings, sharing via
Yes.
no, sorry, sorry. Don Juan's sharing via Carlos. Yes, and this is what we are going
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
Continue. We had a wonderful
Yes.
session day before yesterday with Sher, and she
Yeah.
shared
That's
her
great.
perspective on trauma healing process, and still shared a lot of moreness about this thing because yes, it is very crucial for a person who understand, who go through like on serious intensity traumatic situation, but also in the healing process, especially for the healing process, we need someone who can see things from external point of view. You need that perspective. It is exactly like when people go into swimming and they don't know and they start drowning, and then of course we need someone to pull them out. So yes, it is very, of course, relevant that someone who go through that type of trauma, who share his understanding or her understanding about these things, but also we need someone who never been through that, but have discernment, have understanding, have willingness to resolve things, and have compassion, of course, for others. And in overall, in general, in learning and growing, growing is exactly what healing is, to get out of
Yes.
the unwanted
Yes.
old conventional things and
Growing is
situations.
healing from ignorance. Yeah.
Exactly. And also in many other ways. So growing up to actually, okay, we prefer that this is way of impeccability term, but actually this is what healing is. And we need someone who can share a perspective from outside. Like, okay, yes, I was not into this situation, but because of my discernment, because of my compassion, because of my awareness, I have this perspective. So yes, sometimes, okay, being relevant and connected and belonging to that situation is necessary, but it doesn't negate the value of an external perspective, which is always needed. We have to understand that, because sometimes people say that, oh, you never been through, so how can you understand that? Of course, not everyone can go through in the exact same way as anyone who's been in traumatic situation,
Very important. Very important,
but
Beena.
it
Very
doesn't
important.
shifting. It doesn't negate that value, that how they can see things. And this is what happened day before yesterday in our live together with Sher, and that was really marvelous. Whoever is
Yes.
into the process of growing, okay, we call it growing, which is okay. Other people use the word term healing for that. Because for me,
Yeah.
why I choose growing, it's a deliberate choice. It is not that okay, I'm choosing growing term just because it is from Way-Of-Impeccability. Because for me, healing is not going further for me. Healing, okay, yes, my wound
Yeah.
is healed and now I'm okay. But growing is actually go a bit further.
Yeah.
Yes, it is healed, but now I'm actually getting more power out of it. So this growing
Yes.
is for me, I choose over healing term. And we discussed a lot of things, and that was really really a wonderful session. I really learned a lot, and also it connects a lot of things together. Trauma is not
Yes.
something in isolation. Trauma, again,
No.
we were discussing that trauma or any traumatic situation never happen in isolation. Sometimes people say that, okay, yes, this happened, okay, that abuse of any kind or some other things, they always have roots somewhere in the unawareness.
Exactly.
Always.
Exactly. All our troubles, all our difficulties, all our stresses have their roots in unawareness. Yes.
Yes.
That's wonderful, Beena. I want to just take a quick break here and
Yes.
say hello to Siri Saleri and
Hello.
to Cara T Diamant or Carrot Diamant. I don't know if that's Cara T Diamant or Carrot Diamant. Either way, hello, and
Hello.
welcome joining
Hello.
us on
Welcome,
IG.
guys.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. Yes, welcome everybody. This is great, and I'm hoping Norma will join us, but it's Sunday, so she might not. So we'll see. Either way, we are here and we are ready to continue, and we're about to continue, and everything is just brilliant, right, Beena?
Yes.
We are
Yes.
reading Carlos Castaneda's book series. We're going to read the whole series, all 14 books. And we are doing a capital R reading, which means we read with discernment, we read with moreness, we read to see the depth, we're reading to see implications and connectivities, and we're also bringing our moreness to bear, right? Because this is what we are sharing is moreness culture. That's what we do, Beena and I. We share moreness culture. There's a lot to moreness culture. It's a big deal. It is an alternative paradigm to the superiority paradigm. We'll be commenting as we go. If you want to go back and look at previous episodes, because I think we're on like, I don't know, part 30 of this particular reading, you can find it all on YouTube. The full length videos. I think we share clips, or I do share clips to IG, but not the whole length videos. They won't let us share them. They're too long, I think. Anyway, so it's about sharing moreness, and we are reading this because there's much moreness in it, but sometimes it has to be extracted. So at the moment, we involved in stuff that Don Juan is involved with Carlos in order to collapse his worldview. It's not apparent now, but I know this from the later books. I've studied these quite extensively. So I bring a lot of that to bear as well, and of course all my own work, which is all about moreness culture. Moreness and moreness culture. Well, fun stuff. Just to kind of, because I haven't seen you guys here before, just to fill you in what we're doing. And Beena, anything to add before we get going? Beena, you muted.
Yes. I was busy just typing my message there on
Very
YouTube
good. Yeah,
and
very good.
also
Brilliant.
on Instagram.
Yes,
It is
fantastic.
always fun that where new people are joining us, even if you are there
Yes,
for a few moments. Just
yes. We
whatever
love it.
you get.
We love it.
If you find some value, just leave a comment there. Just say that,
Yeah,
okay,
even
yes,
if it's a smiley face or a heart
because
or just a thumbs up or hello,
yes,
it
again,
makes a big difference. Yeah.
of course. Yes, it's a leverage for us because we really truly appreciate every gesture, but also it is good for you. Every single time you are
Yes.
making a deliberate choice to putting something, it is actually you are going out of your comfort zone. We are so
Yeah.
comfortable with not saying anything, with being like invisible on social media. We really like
Yeah.
that. It's a comfort zone. But do click like and subscribe, or maybe just leave a comment there because it is a practice of getting out of our comfort zone.
Yes. Yes. And also, you're training your life's algorithm to say, I want more of this by making
And
that little bit of extra
being more
emphasis.
social,
It's
being more vocal about, and being
exactly.
yes,
Sorry. I think we talked over each other there.
yes.
Sorry. Sorry.
Please
You
continue.
dropped. Yeah, you dropped. No, that's all I wanted to say. That's all I wanted to say.
It was my internet
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah. Yeah. All good. All good. All right. Here we are. And we're continuing with chapter 9. I think we're on part 3. There's not much of it left, but there is a significant part here. So this is all about Don Juan showing Carlos some sorcery techniques. Now, in the beginning, if you read this book and you don't know anything and you haven't read any of the other books, this appears to be the most important thing and very important. Right? But later we'll see it's not so at all. Right? And from a self-learning point of view, If you're looking to take yourself along the path, this is not something that we can replicate, right? Because it requires specialist knowledge and lots of, it comes from Don Juan's lineage, and it's something that later he reveals they don't, the modern part of the lineage have realized the limitations of this, and they moved on from it, right? So it's not something, they moved into moreness, really. Don Juan doesn't use that term, but we'll absolutely see how it applies, which is why I so love Moreness-Culture, because it's part of it. It has its own language. Now, it's not a new language. It's just using the current language in an extended way, in a deeper way, in a more connected way, with a lot more depth, like the word moreness, right? Perfectly acceptable English word for those who object, who never heard it before. You're taking a known word and you're just simply adding another known suffix, much like somebody did once upon a time with happy, and they added happiness, or beautiful, beautifulness, right? More, moreness, right? Perfectly acceptable word. It just happens to be that I'm the one who put this together, right? Yeah, it's fascinating to me that it's never been used before. I mean, I'm really surprised at that. Yeah, I looked it up too, anyway. So, and it's now in the dictionary. So anyway, that's how things come into the dictionary, just popular usage. At any rate, moreness is a big deal, and Moreness-Culture, there's a lot to it. Anyway, we're gonna be reading, and we're gonna be extracting this. Please, Beena, would you read?
Yes, I would love to. So I hope my network was not stable. That's why it was overlapping. So please excuse us for that. We were not like really into hurry and talking over each other. No, it was just a happenstance. So yes, sorry for that. Saturdays, 26 December 1964. Don Juan asked me if I had looked for the lizards. I told him I had, but that I couldn't find them. I asked him what would have happened if one of the lizards had died while I was holding it. He said the death of a lizard would be an unfortunate event. If the lizard with the sewed up mouth had died at any time, there would have been no sense in pursuing the sorcery. He said it would also have meant that the lizards have had withdrawn their friendship, and I would have had to give up learning about the devil's weed for a long time. How long, Don Juan? I asked. 2 years or more. What would have happened if the other lizard had died? If the second lizard had died, you would have been in real danger. You would have been alone without a guide. If she died before you started the sorcery, you could have stopped it. But if you had stopped it, you would also have to give up the devil's weed for good. If the lizard had died while she was on your shoulder after you had begun the sorcery, you would have had to go ahead with it. And that would truly have been madness. Why would it have been madness? Because under such conditions, nothing makes sense. You are alone without a guide, seeing terrifying, nonsensical things. What do you mean by nonsensical things? Things we see by ourselves, things we see when we have no direction. It means the devil's weed is trying to get rid of you, finally pushing you away. Do you know anyone who ever experienced that? Yes, I did. Without the wisdom of the lizards, I went mad. What did you
Wow.
see, Ron? A bunch of nonsense. What else could I have seen without direction?
Don Juan's worldview is very, very different to Carlos's. Very different.
Yes.
Very different, right? Very different
Monday 28.
understanding. But this is important, right? One of
Yes.
one of the key sayings to Moreness-Culture is the world does not work the way we think it does. Now, this is an extreme examples of the world not working the way we think it does. But even if we, in our everyday lives, if we start paying attention, just how people think, how they operate, how they behave, etc., just in that alone, the world does not work the way we think it does. Right? We have this idea the world works in a certain way, but no, it's not accurate. And once we start to be open to the world working in different ways, we start to see and connect to and experience so much that otherwise would be lost to us.
Wow. Monday 28th December 1964. You told me, Don Juan, that the devil's weed tests men. What do you mean by that? The devil's weed is like a woman. Like a woman, she flatters men. She sets trap for them at every turn. Seriously. She did it to you when she forced you to rub the paste on your forehead. She will try it
Yeah, not
again.
not not a
And you
very
will
positive view of
probably
women there, Don Juan, but all right. Keep in
exactly,
mind. All
exactly.
right,
Very
well,
old,
Don Juan is not,
very
we'll
old
see later on, Don Juan
view.
is very sophisticated. Don Juan speaks Carlos's language as an act of
Hmm.
appropriateness. This is Carlos's expectation, and it's really quite
Oh,
discerning from Carlos. Sorry, from Don Juan, because if you read up about Carlos, especially in towards the later years of his life and after he died, many people came forward that knew him personally, right? And he had very complex relationships with women. And this statement very much applies to Carlos's life. And Don Juan has the ability to know such things about Carlos. And we'll see later on how. He has the ability to truly discern in remarkable ways. So let's not put this on Don Juan, but it's rather on Carlos. And he's saying something which is Carlos appropriate. Yeah, right? It's very interesting. Very interesting. Please continue, Beena.
okay. She will try it again, and you will probably fall for it. I warn you against it. Don't take her with passion. The devil's weed is only one path to the secrets of a man of knowledge. There are other paths,
That's
but her
important.
trap is
That's
to make you
important.
believe that hers is the only way. I say it is useless to waste. Yes, I say it,
I
it
was
is
saying it's
useless to
important
waste your
that
life
there's
on one
other
path.
paths. We have a lot of lag. We have a lot of lag. All right, never mind. Carry on,
No
Beena.
problem. Okay. I say it is useless to waste your life on one path, especially if that path has no heart. But how do you know when a path has no heart on one? Before you embark on it, you ask the question, does this path have a heart? If the answer is no, you will know it. And then you must choose another path. Clarity of intent. But how will I
Yeah,
know for sure whether a path has a heart or not? Anybody would know that. The trouble is nobody asks the question. And when a
exactly.
man finally realizes that he has taken a path without a heart, the path is ready to kill him. At that point,
Yes.
very few men can stop to deliberate and leave the path. Wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This is very important, and we've had this before with the path of heart that's come up again, and this is Don Juan saying the same thing again. In a different way, of course, right? It's very similar, but close. It's important. It's a very, very, very important point. This point about the path of thought, it's massive. And this is, part of Moreness-Culture is living in attunement. Right? Now, attunement is a huge concept, a very big deal, and there's much, 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 much involved with attunement. But the word attunement alone can give you an indication of what's meant by attunement. And when you live in attunement, you're always on a path with heart. There's no doubt. The attunement is the path with heart, right? Now, it's not the same, of course. When you're attuned, it's always different for everybody, right? And it's unique to you. It's precise, exact, intimately, precisely attuned to you, your heart. That's what makes it so fantastic. It's a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. So please continue, Beena. We'll add all this to our quote file. Now, what we do is we have many quote files, but this is extracting quotes that are powerful like this and putting them. I put them into a spreadsheet because later on I'm going to sort them by category. right? It's easier to do, especially multiple categories. It's much easier to do in a spreadsheet. So, I put in a separate column, I put the different tags, and then you can sort according to that. And it's very powerful because, like this thing with the path with heart, right? See, I'll put a tag there, path with heart, right? And this now later on will go and sort for that. And you'll see all the comments that he makes about path with heart all together. And when you read them all together, he's saying the same thing, but sometimes coming at it from different angles. And when you have that multiple perspectives, which is absolutely key to Moreness-Culture, it's key to Way-Of-Impeccability, which is the foundation for Moreness-Culture. You now start to see the bigger picture from all of these multiple views, right? So this is very, very powerful to do. Please continue, Beena.
How should I proceed to ask the question properly? Don't want. Just ask it. I mean, is there a proper method so I would not lie to myself and believe the answer is yes when it really is no? Why would you lie? Perhaps because at the moment the path is pleasant and enjoyable. That is nonsense. A path without a heart is never enjoyable. You have to work hard even to take it. On the other hand, a path with heart is easy. It does not make you work at liking it. This is okay. It's very subtle and it's like duh, but for me, it just hits me that okay, it doesn't make you work to liking it. Sometimes
That's
we
very
just
important.
miss that we are deliberately liking something. We are trying and putting a lot of effort into something. It is not coming innately because we do deliberately try to like something because of should. Okay, because everybody is saying that, so no matter I'm enjoying it or not, and this is how we learn to not enjoy and don't know about our own selves and what we really like. Very profound. Okay, for me again. Don Juan suddenly changed the direction of the conversation and bluntly confronted me with the idea that I liked the devil's weed. I had to admit that I had at least a preference for it. He asked me how I felt about his ally, the smoke, and I had to tell him that just the idea of it frightened me out of my senses. I have told you that to choose a path, you must be free from fear and ambition. But the smoke blinds you with fear, and the devil's weed blind you with ambition. I argued that one needs ambition. Yes?
No, I'll say when you're done. Keep going.
I argued that one needs ambition even to embark on any path, and that his statement that one had to be free from ambition did not make sense. A person has to have ambition in order to learn. Exactly, this is how I was. The desire to learn is not ambition, he said. It is our lot as men to want to know, but to seek the devil's weed is to bid for power, and that is ambition because you're not bidding to know. Don't let the devil's weed blind you. She has hooked you already. She entices men and gives them a sense of power. She makes them feel they can do things that no ordinary man can. But that is a trap. And the next thing, the path without a heart will turn against men and destroy them. It does not take much to die, and to seek death is to seek nothing.
There you go. That point about being without fear and ambition, this is very key. And this is why impeccability is so important. That's why this Way of Impeccability, which is a program, a learning program, and it's the core program. I have others, but this is the core one. And why it's so important and why it's called Way of Impeccability, not Way of Appropriateness, Way of Attunement, Way of Moreness, Way of Intent. There's a lot of ones that can be called, right? But this impeccability, because impeccability is going to be the tool that allows you that you can utilize, that allows you to check and know whether or not your choices are free of fear and ambition. It's very key. Very, 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 very key. Beena, make sense?
Yes, and also that when he says that to seek that death is to seek nothing.
Yeah.
It's right there, a very powerful quote for me, because
Oh yeah.
when someone
Oh
gets
yeah.
into this stage, at this stage in their life, when they want to end their life, or just want to, like, okay, just die, actually they just limiting everything. This quote is describing the sadness and the hopelessness for me. To seek death is to seek nothing.
Yeah.
So powerful
Exactly.
for me.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a very, very powerful quote. Yes. 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 Very important. Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 10.
Yes. Wow. Chapter 10 finally. Chapter
Yes.
10.
That whole point there, that's why I say we read with discernment, because yeah, we got all this other stuff with the lizards and the datura and all the smoke and all the stuff, but in between there's stuff like this, right?
Yes.
Um, this idea from Carlos that one needs ambition to embark in any path. No, Carlos, it's not from ambition. You can do it because it's the right thing to do. Capital R, right, not right according to morals and church and all. No, right according to your conscience, right according to your heart, right according to
Yes.
your inner
Yes.
predilection. That's what right is. That's capital R, right. Only you can decide what's right. You and only you. The individual, a quote for you, the individual and the individual alone is the final arbiter of truth. Final arbiter of truth. That's you, no one else. No matter how much somebody's telling you this is what you should do, this is what you have to do, the preacher, whoever, right? You still have to choose whether to believe them or not. So in the end, you choose. See, no matter how much they're saying it
Yes.
comes from here, it comes from that, you have to choose to believe them. Because I grew up in a very religious community, right? Extremely in my early years. Like really, one step away from being Amish. That's how religious, right? Very, very
Wow.
strict, very conservative. But when you actually paid attention, and as a kid, I practiced being seen and not heard. And well, I guess I was seen, in that seeing and not hearing, I heard everything. I just practiced being anonymous, and so the adults would just ignore you, and they would have these conversations talking about their secrets and all the stuff, right? And they just, well, you're too young, you're not going to know what's going on. This was when I was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, in that age range, because that's when I lived there in that town, a small town, middle of nowhere. At any rate, and so I heard them talking about their religious doubts, and their religious theories and their religious beliefs, and they varied. There was variation. It was too fantastic. Yeah? And a lot of times I went with my father when he went to do house calls. He was a doctor and he did house calls. It's another era. At any rate, and so he was off with a patient in the room there, whatever. And we went to some very remote places, like remote farms. We'd drive a couple of hours to get out there, and I'd open the gates for my father. The cattle gates, right? Well, anyway, sheep there, weren't there much cattle. At any rate, and so now it's serious, because the only reason my father's there is because somebody's very, very ill, and typically, death is
Mm.
somewhere nearby, or a potential. So of course everybody's in serious mode. And when they're in serious mode, they start talking about stuff like this, their beliefs and all that, right? So I heard the most fantastic things. And I heard this variation. And it really fascinated me, because when you go to church there, you would think, well, everybody believes the same, because it's a very, very regimented society, obedience, you got to all do the same thing. No, there's a lot of variation. It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. In other words, it made me aware that people were choosing what to believe. They didn't just accept, and that was the end of it. On the surface, it seemed like they were doing this, but inside, no, no, yeah, because they were good people. They were, but misled by themselves, unfortunately, and they suffered from inappropriate application of goodness, like really seriously suffered from it. And they suffered from inadvertent hypocrisy. Those personal doubts, when they made a personal choice according to their conscience, which was the right thing to do, Yes, and they made that choice. It conflicted sometimes somewhat with the church, but on the surface, they were caught up in being obedient, and they were obedient. So they conformed, but privately they had doubts, and so they ended up in this inadvertent hypocrisy, and it ate them up. It ate them up because they were truly good people trying to be good, but they had one flaw, and that one flaw was this blind obedience that you must obey, you must obey. Thou shalt not question. That was the 11th commandment, yeah, that they lived by. It's not technically so, but in practicality, that was what it, and it killed them. I mean, it ruined them. It really, really hurt them tremendously. It was very sad to see. Never left me. Anyhow, big deal, big deal, big deal. Very big deal stuff here, right? So pay attention, be true to yourself. Impeccability demands self-honesty. Impeccability demands self-honesty. When you are
Oh,
truly
yes.
honest, you're going to know whether or not you are doing things from fear or ambition. Greed, in other words, right? You know, when you put ambition in a bigger context, it's greed and self-importance and, looking good and all of this stuff, which is like, come on, are those really real reasons for doing things? No, they're just indulgence. They're BS. They get you nowhere. And they're self-defeating reasons for the most part also. Because, like ambition, mostly it's about status and image and perception and attention. But what are you doing? You're getting something that you think is valuable at what price? The price is vulnerability. You become vulnerable to the approval of others. How is this free? How is this value? No, it's not. BS, right? All right. Please continue, Beena. Please continue. Please continue.
Just before we continue, I just want to emphasize something which is so profound for me, because when you say that I was just, as a kid, I was there, but I was just having that intent to be invisible. I see that power
Oh,
of intent right there. You were, of
oh
course,
yeah.
not physically
Oh, yeah.
invisible. You were there, but
Oh,
because of your
exactly.
intent, they were not
Yeah.
actually able to see you or at least give you attention. You were like, mm,
Bye.
it doesn't make any difference that you were there or not because of
Bye.
your intent,
Bye.
just
Yeah.
because of your intent. Otherwise,
Yeah.
how would they would not notice that? It is
Yep.
impossible.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
see the power of intent right there. Okay, of course you were not deliberately, or maybe deliberately, of course you were doing that. But to see that actual action of intent right there, that you just set an intent that, okay, I'm just going to be there. Of course, I don't want anyone's attention. I don't want anyone's even like, okay, they start talking to me or an interaction, anything.
Yeah.
And this intent was in play right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now it is
Because
connected.
attention in general was generally negative. If in that
Yes.
culture, adults gave you attention, you were in trouble. That was the only association typically. So, I learned to avoid it. But, in a situation like that, I quickly also realized that, well, for that reason, yes. But also, you just use a strategy beside the intent. Just don't say anything. Don't make any comments. Don't make a noise. Don't be fiddling with stuff. So there's, or beside the intent, there's also just regular strategy involved, right? Isn't
Wow.
that interesting,
Okay.
Beena? Yeah.
Yes.
There's more to it. There's more to it, right? So we can combine strategy and enhance it with intent. We can have an intent and enhance it with strategy and do
So,
both
like, what
together,
kind
right?
of attention?
What are you doing? And, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? I don't know. You get a smack or something. I don't know. Parents
Wow.
were always thinking that children needed to be disciplined. And I don't know, or
Oh,
sometimes
that
they
was
just find
something.
something for you
Yes.
to do. It's
Yes,
very
that is
negative.
something.
It's very negative. It's horrible.
Okay, that this is something, of course, common. It was in my childhood also, that, okay, you need to be
Yeah,
disciplined. But and
right.
also that, okay, oh, it's adults interaction, conversation, and who you are
Exactly.
to be part of it.
Exactly.
So
Right.
we
Like, what are you
always
doing
have.
listening to us or stuff like this,
Yes,
Like, what's wrong
yes.
with you? What's the matter with you? What are you up to? They're always suspicious. Children were always up to something, right? So it was
Which is true.
quite an
Which is true.
accomplishment to just be anonymous and be ignored.
No, but which was true, that, okay, children are always up to something. I think that,
Well,
okay,
yeah,
I
but
was
not
always
not
up to
negative
something.
necessarily.
Of course,
Yeah,
not negative. But for me, it
right,
was just a curiosity to know,
right.
okay, what's going on, why things are like, okay, this and especially for me, the problem was that what they are saying and what they are doing is different.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
And also
Yeah,
that,
I
okay,
mean,
why not
yeah,
addressing the core issue? Big problem
yeah,
for me, because the
yeah,
politeness or the sophistication or the politics of my in my culture was that, okay, to not say few things openly. So it is like, okay,
yes,
always
yeah,
going
same,
roundabout
same.
way, just beating the bushes. So for me, that was the concern that why they are aware, they put, or all of the people are aware, but still they are not saying, addressing the core issue. So that is a big problem. But my understanding was that I never considered that as negative.
Right,
Maybe I was too
right.
groomed for the shoulds. So I was like, okay, yes,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Uh, I never
No,
took it as negative. Anyway,
well, I guess I was lucky because my mother, who I learned the skill of being anonymous, and well, with her, I just avoided her at all costs. You know, like in winter when I would be outside in that period of my life up to age 9, because we moved to a different town. Well, and even then, I made the effort to never be around really. Uh, the whenever she found me, she always found me something to do, some nonsense, idiotic, unnecessary thing to do, right? Because this was her
like
idea of
chores,
motherhood. Uh, Say again? Yeah, yeah,
like
but it was
chores.
like chores, but well, at that time, in early days, we actually had some servants. Uh, uh, there
So
was no
what's the
logic
problem?
to it. She, exactly. She was just finding something for me to do because in her mind, this is what being a mother meant. It was telling your kids what to do. That's what it meant to her. It was absurd. So I just avoided being with her. And in winter, when it was cold outside and I couldn't go outside, I found places to hide in the house. Right? I mean, we had this guest bedroom that nobody ever went into, and there had two fairly large beds that were pushed together. And I made like a little tunnel, and I put them in. They had one duvet, which was really interesting on it, right?
Yeah.
Cover. Anyway, so I could push the beds a little bit apart, and the duvet would still be there, and I'd be there in between the beds. And I remember my mother coming to the room and saying, "Where are you? Where are you?" I was right there. Didn't say a word. Off she went. Yeah,
Love this. Love this.
yeah.
Okay.
Just because nonsense, nonsense. You think in that time that we had together, read stories or have fun. No, it was always just negative, and she was always like fussing and bothering and hassling about stuff.
Uh,
Ah, man, I don't want anything to do with that. So I
like
learned
trying
this,
to prove
understood
that
about it.
she is like trying to prove that she is a very dedicated mother and she's going through a
Correct,
lot.
correct,
So
correct.
okay, yeah.
Her idea of should. But the underlyingness of this, when we now look at this in a deeper way, we understand something, that there's a belief here, and it's inappropriate application of goodness. This came up earlier in a chat, something that I mentioned to somebody.
Uh-huh.
But it's a big point. We've mentioned it many, many times in previous lives. It's a key conception from Way of Impeccability, and it's in our Dictionary of Power, which is one of the tools from Way of Impeccability. And it's a big part of Moreness-Culture to understand this. In her understanding, she was trying to be good. And to be a good mother meant you were disciplined and you were strict with your children. And she wasn't really, right? And she didn't
Uh,
like discipline, and she didn't kind of care for it much. And she would do it at first and then kind of give up on it, right? And same with my father, right? It's all idea of what should do. But there's a deeper problem in that culture, right? There was this belief that we were born sinners, which
oh,
means children were inherently bad and they had to be taught to be good. Your
oh
natural,
wow.
your natural instinctive tendency as a child is to do bad things and be wrong. Really? Really?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Sher says hello, and Christopher Abbott says three rights make a left. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It was
yes.
just terrible, you know, it was terrible. So hello, Sher, and hello, Christopher Abbott.
Hello,
I'm glad you
Sher.
guys are here. It's too wonderful. And we were just saying, Sher, at the beginning of the introduction, how wonderful our life was on Friday when you were here. And it was
Yes.
just fantastic, show. It was just fantastic. And you know, when I was making the clips for it, because well, now I'm actually making the clips more deliberately with grain rather than having them automatically done with Substack. Yes, good morning, Christopher Abbott. Um,
Good
and I was
morning.
pulling the clips from the live on Friday. So much value, so much excellence. They posted to IG, and I have somebody post them to Facebook for me. She posted them to IG for me as well, and TikTok. So they'll be in group when she gets them. You know, so they should appear soon if you ever want to look at those. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. But this point about inappropriate application of goodness, it very much connects to our beliefs, right? And my mother believed that, and she didn't even, it wasn't a chosen belief, she wasn't even consciously aware of it. It was just a default that was around in the culture, right? And we were in a unique bubble because the language I spoke at home was English, but I went to an Afrikaans school, right, and the second language there. Right now, it was the predominant language of that community by far. There were only like 2 or 3 English-speaking families in the whole town, right? And maybe a bit more actually, but at least that school kids. There were more that didn't have school. So we went to the Methodist church, which was very small, a very tiny, very small congregation. I don't know, might have been 2 or 3 dozen people at most. Now, in today's world, it's wow, 2 or 3 dozen people in the church. That's a lot. Attendance has fallen off very dramatically from then on. If you went to the church of the Afrikaans speaking segment of the population, because there's only one other choice, Dutch Reformed Church, it's called, very particular section, you know, subsection of Christianity, Protestant church. At any rate, if you went there on a Sunday, every single individual in that community would be there, all of them, right? Not to go to church was unthinkable, unthinkable, just not a possibility. Yeah. Whether you wanted to break into a house, do it on Sunday during church time. Nobody around. Sorry. Yes. Well, I have a story once where it's a long story. I have some wonderful long stories, but we were out in just driving through this valley, a very kind of a remote valley, very cool valley, very steep valley, and like you know, valleys usually have some width on the floor and then the mountains on the side. This was just at the bottom of the V. That was it, right? Anyway, and there was a little place that we were inquiring about. We wanted to inquire about to potentially stay there. Very long story that why that was. Anyway, so we go to the farm that's right across there, and it was during church time. It was completely deserted. It was just the most amazing thing. Absolutely deserted. And everything just there, open, you know, it's fascinating. So anyway, but I'm saying that obedience and that, you know, subscription to doing things that you should and must do. My parents were never particularly religious at all, but they went to church quite, you know, we went every Sunday because, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And it's almost an obligation. If you don't, then you're out, you know, and nobody will have any time for you. Very fascinating stuff. Very fascinating stuff. So you have to be careful of that. And through that, my mother assimilated these ideas. Assimilated is the word. These ideas that if you don't watch your children, if you're not careful with them, if you don't punish them and discipline them, all that, then they'll turn out bad because that's their natural tendency, right? And just what a horrible viewpoint, and sad, because again, you know, the average people in that the core, not all of the people really. I didn't know any bad people there. They were all intensely good people. They were deliberately trying their best to be good, but they were trying to be good according to flawed criteria. Really sad. So they practiced inappropriate application of goodness all the time, the whole culture there, the whole community. Yeah. And it was really quite something sad, right? This inappropriate application of goodness. And we see it in my mother specifically, or I saw it many times in children who just rebelled against the ridiculousness, and they just got beaten all the time, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, because corporal punishment was a thing in schools. You got canings and stuff at school. Yeah, so yeah, hidings were a big part of it. And how does that really work? I mean, you're doing something that doesn't hold up logically, and you try and point out the illogic, and you get a beating. So all you learn is that not only are your parents and society and culture somewhat illogical and irrational, but also they don't care to actually listen and learn and grow. Of course, they somewhat evolve out of that, but it made for a lot of stress. And I was very fortunate in having an awareness at age 6 about appropriateness and about having an appropriate side to deal with the culture, so that you don't end up in that conflict with that culture. And so, I had a social side, which did everything that I was supposed to do, and I didn't cause any harm, any trouble. And as I mean, from a societal point of view, right? Yeah, I was a troublemaker on my own accord, but that was for different reasons. That's me trying to be cool, but that's part of that social side, right? You doing, being cool was the thing to be and the thing to do, and that made me fit in very much. I really was cool, actually. So I wasn't out, because my private side was so completely, it was all about the stuff. Yeah. It's a whole different world. I couldn't speak about it into anybody. Yeah, no, not the stuff that I'm talking about, moreness stuff, right? Impeccability, and well, I called it rightness at the time. Didn't use the word impeccability, and just sensibility, learning, growing, awareness, etc. And you had to keep that to yourself. What is this stuff? What are you talking about? Just because it wasn't what the religious stuff, and it wasn't from the Bible, anything other than that was automatically no good, was automatically trouble. It's from the devil. Doesn't matter how sensible it was, anything else would be negative. So this inappropriate application of goodness, it's really sad. Now that culture has moved on, right? At least in general, on the overall part of the culture, there might still be isolated communities like that, because I see those same isolated communities. I still see them here in America even, right? So I suspect they're still there too. But things change. Still, be aware of it, though. Be aware of it, yeah, and learn to be appropriate. And that's why appropriateness is the core conception that underlies the entire Moreness philosophy, the entire way of all of it, right? That's it. Appropriateness is the core term. Yeah, right, Beena?
Yes.
Very important. What
It
are you
is
thinking?
important. I was
I feel you thinking. I was
yes,
going to
I was
say, I can
thinking.
hear you thinking, but I feel it. You're thinking.
Yes,
Something grabbed you in what I said there. Something grabbed you.
yes, because the whole culture thing, and also that okay, your awareness at the age of 6. I think that culture was like working like an incubator, or maybe I don't know that okay, like an oven, like really cooking you, so that you were pushed to be
Oh, yeah.
aware of it.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Oh, yeah.
otherwise, that might not be that pressure from everywhere, like from all side. The pressure was on you, and you were aware of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh, it's
because in
magical.
my culture, in my when I was young, okay, in my childhood, it was not a pressure from every side. Yes, I was feeling that hypocrisy or the other things were really a big deal for me. I was feeling overwhelmed by that. But I do had that the like where my parents were, okay, they had the comforting side, and they were not like that. Yes, some part of them. I don't know about my father actually, because I don't. I just want to give him a margin of being human, but I never seen
Yeah.
that. But okay, still,
Your father was very magical. I mean, you only knew him until age 5, but you got to know him via others very
oh
well, which
yes,
is quite
like
amazing.
people
Yeah,
still
it's quite
tells a story
beautiful.
about him. Still, people do
Yeah.
share stories about him that how
Isn't
wonderful
that
he was.
amazing? Yeah,
Yes, amazing.
yeah,
I wish that okay, people
yeah.
do
And
like
that's
me
like,
as
wow, that's like many, many decades ago, right? That you were 5.
many decades ago. Yes, at
No,
least
I tease you. It's not that
no, at
many,
least
but
three.
not,
Yeah, at least three. So yes,
well, 2.5. Yeah. All right.
no, it's a
Anyway,
three.
yeah, yeah.
So 3 decades. So yes,
Wow.
but still people do talk about him, and I really
Yeah,
because he was not a nice person like me. He was adamant.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was
It didn't.
super adamant, but still people. Okay, and coming back to what you were sharing, I was feeling that at the age of 6, someone being so
Yeah,
aware,
yeah.
not
You
only
know,
aware
it's a,
because people,
yeah.
yeah,
Go
people
ahead.
do get some awareness and some understanding that okay, this is wrong, this is right, this is
Yeah,
appropriate, this is inappropriate, but not everyone, or actually most of us, were not able to sort these things out, to be very clear.
yeah,
We were wondering, we were, okay, I'm including myself into that, we were just wondering that why things are like that. So the questions were unresolved. We were not so sure that what we are thinking is right. We were into mostly, most of us were in self doubt. Doesn't have that self trust that what I'm thinking is appropriate. This is
yeah,
the way things has to be. But we were doubting ourselves, and we learned the self doubt from all those situations, and we
wow.
learn to pay attention to words instead of actions. You were paying attention to actions, and you were paying attention to the
Yes,
patterns, and you were paying attention
yes.
to the reasons behind the choice of words. But I deliberately learned to pay attention to words, and this is I just recently came to know that many people are like that. They learn to
Yeah,
pay attention to words,
yeah,
and that's how
yeah.
they
Well, I
allow
learned to keep
a
my
lot of
doubts to myself, and
yes.
not just my doubts, but my disagreements. Many of the things on the surface were patently ridiculous. Yes. Now, it's very important. This is very, very important because I saw this happening right in front of me with my peers, my classmates. Right when they were right as we started to go to school, I saw this happening. But before that, they were aware too of the nonsense and the ridiculousness. Yeah, but they quickly, very quickly, learned to conform, and when they learned to conform, that went away. All those doubts, that objection, it somehow they just wiped it all away, and it just disappeared, and they became stupid. They were smart kids who became stupid. I saw it happen. I saw it happen. Because that was the only
Yes.
thing that they
Yes.
thought, that was the only way they thought they could survive, because they didn't have that public side and the social side, right? So they could only have
Oh,
one, and
yes.
that one side, that side, in order to survive, you couldn't have doubts, you couldn't have objections, right? Never mind doubts, objections, right? Because we object, a lot of stuff was
Oh,
just horrible
yes.
nonsense for no good reason, you know, and we objected to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was a very different thing. Now, with me and my awareness, later when I came to look at this very carefully, like somewhere in my late teens, when somebody said once, "But wow, that's something really to be proud of." You know, when I was sharing thoughts like this, and I'm like, hmm, yeah, I never really ever thought of this, because it's a superiority paradigm thing which I never really subscribed to or anti-subscribed to. I saw it all around me. It was a lot of rubbish. But you know, like you were saying, oh, you must take credit for this stuff. Right? That was actually the term that the person used too. You know, you should take credit for this, or like you can take really great credit for this. I forget how they use the expression exactly. And I'm like, but how can I take credit for this? Well, okay, I thought about it, I figured it out, and then I said, yeah, but that came because of something that went before it, and then and I kept going back and back and back. So everything that this person was thinking I should be proud of or take credit for, I'm like, my honesty was like, can I really take credit for it? Is this my own creation? Is this my own thing? I said, no, it came from something that came before, and it came from time before. And then I went back to the starting points. And that was when I really became aware of that bathroom incident, which was a very big deal because it was appropriateness and the social and the private self. The social and the private self were there to in order to enable me to be appropriate in the biggest concept of all, right? And this was a very big deal. Where did that come from? Yes, there was an incident in the bathroom, and this bully and the older boy came and dealt with the bully, and he said, "Oh, you guys should know better." He didn't say that specifically. I pulled it from what he said. I created it out of what he said. But it was something that I had no basis for. It came out of nowhere. And my only way to understand this is that it's a carryover from some other time, some other place, some other, who knows, right? You know, they say there is no time, it's all an illusion, we all live in the moment. Oh, no, it came from my future self somehow, somewhere. Because this is, you know, I'm talking about appropriateness. I think some things
Yes.
we emphasize so much, they go like almost into your DNA and they can carry over. Yeah. And that's the only way that it makes sense to me. Again, the world does not work the way we think it does. And for me, this is very clear proof of it. Very important. Yeah. So again, don't be surprised by yourself. In other words, you know, you can do lots of magic to you that you're not aware of. But if you expect only the usual, typical, yeah, then that's all you're going to get. So be a bit open, yeah, to your own moreness, and be very open to your own moreness, because there's lots of it. And that's how I interact with people, right? Sher made a comment. He said, you saw it then, either we were on Zoom talking or during the live. I know it was fairly recently. They say, you saw it in me then.
Mhm.
Talking about when Sher first came and started Way-Of-Impeccability 5 years ago, right? Says you, but I didn't see it, Sher said, right? At least I might be paraphrasing, but I remember the exact phrase he said, but you saw it in me then, right? And by implication, I didn't. And yes, why? Sure, because that's my point. That when you're in Moreness-Culture, I've learned to look for and see the moreness in others. It's there in everybody. You just have to go past the nonsense somewhat, right? And you look a little bit, oh, wow, it's there, right? It doesn't take that much. It just takes a little bit. Okay, sometimes it can take a little more depending on the individuals. But if you really just pay attention, you'll see the moreness, right? You'll see the intent to goodness. Like my mother, she had an intent to goodness. It was unfortunately very corrupted by her nonsense, but she still had an intent to goodness. Yeah? She was trying to be a good person. She was also believed very much in status and ego and approval of people. You know, what will the neighbors think and all this stuff, right? Keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, she was a yuppie before yuppies were a thing, right? It was super important to her. But that's what she believed she should do in life. And really have a thought of her own. She was doing according to should. Should is ridiculously subversive. Subversive. It also corrupts, but it is subversive. Yeah, I mean, go look it up. You're not sure. Should is ridiculously subversive. And so she had an intent to goodness, but it was completely subverted by these idiotic ideas, by the superiority paradigm, which is why Moreness is Moreness-Culture. It is looking, it's a culture that is looking to be a contrast to the superiority paradigm culture, and the typical culture, the default culture that we come into and we assimilate and absorb and follow because we're trying to be good, but trying to be good according to idiotic ideologies, idiotic rules, idiotic ideas, idiotic motivations, idiotic understandings of what's important. What's important according to the superiority paradigm? Yeah, dominance, ego, or if you aren't dominant, then you must be submissive. That's important because that's how you avoid trouble, by being submissive. It's ridiculous culture, absolutely, absurdly ridiculous, right? Yet it's very powerful, and we do things according to it. And it's very important to understand this. Very, very important to understand this. Be
Yes.
appropriate and be honest, and that's always the thing. I was always honest, but I was honest internally. I could not have been honest externally. I would have been beaten senseless. I mean, I would have had hidings every single day. And I saw this with some kids who were honest externally, and they just suffered ridiculously miserably. There was no value to it whatsoever. They didn't change things one iota. Yeah. Christopher Abbott says, I agree. That's what I like about Syl. Thank you, Christopher Abbott.
Thank you,
You know
Christopher.
what?
Syl,
Yeah.
what, sorry to interrupt you, but
No, go.
what you were saying, it just gave me some very interesting insight about being appropriate, because some people learn to be appropriate according to the situation and circumstances. Like Sher,
Exactly.
in in in
Exactly.
in that environment, Sher learn to be appropriate according to other people's wishes and
Yeah.
demands, and of course situation and
Exactly.
circumstances.
Exactly.
She was just trying to
Yeah.
be in her goodness, she was trying to be appropriate.
Right. Right.
And this is
Right.
okay, it's a kind of like, and people put it on you that as an obligation that you have to be appropriate. And what she
Yeah.
was doing, she was just trying to be appropriate in that situation.
Yeah.
And okay, like you, but you had a complete understanding of appropriateness. I personally feel
It
that
was capital A appropriateness, which is in all contexts, not just your
yes,
local
and
context.
also that
Exactly.
okay, we need to have some before trying, because appropriateness, I always feel that impeccability comes first. Okay, yeah, it's a big question, but
Yes.
I always say that okay, impeccability needs to always be first, because
Yep.
appropriateness can be okay in some specific situations can be very dangerous if you don't have
Yeah.
impeccability in your overall being. Then it can be like really an open sword you have, like okay, in your
Oh
hands.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
you
Oh
can be
yeah.
a manipulator, and of course
Like
another
those poor
tenet.
rebels that I knew. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and like in Sher case, okay, not in Sher's only, of course, in many other, like countless other
Yeah.
people's life, when they try to be appropriate, they get like in a very self-destructive, okay, in
Yeah.
roundabout way, self-destructive situation, because they don't love themselves, they don't prioritize themselves, they don't see things that okay, what is causing it to me. And that's, it's a big huge deal. So that's why yes, because I personally feel that I was trying to be appropriate by not communicating. I was lacking in awareness, I was lacking in strategy, I was lacking in discernment at that time. So what I was doing, I was just trying to avoid people. My escape way was that okay, I just want to be in my room, in my bed, and have just all the drawings on my wall, and just that this is something I just want to do. I don't like to, because it was super overwhelming, and of course I was lacking into. So the appropriateness comes in many different ways. Just so amazing,
Yes.
so
Yes.
amazing.
And that's the thing. We need to understand contextual appropriateness. In my
Yes,
immediate context of the day-to-day living, going to school, interacting with my parents, with other adults, and at that time, right? I mean, you have to be careful of all adults. If you did something, let's say I said a bad word, a swear word, whatever adult was nearby would have given me a smack. That's it. No matter who you were, and that was just part of the culture. So you had to be very careful. But that's the immediate appropriateness, was essentially conforming in some way. But the greater appropriateness was in my private side. I was always discerning and saying, no, this is no good, that's no good, and learning and understanding and looking at why, and figuring it all out, right? Discerning it really. And that was appropriate on the internal side, because I knew at some point, I couldn't wait to finish school. I was very keen to finish school so I could go out and do my own thing and not have that, right? That at that point I would be able to live and be who I wish to be, not according to all of that other nonsense stuff, right? So that appropriateness was just about learning to wait and have the patience to wait. Patience is always very powerful, very, 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 very powerful, and it's a ridiculous superpower. And I have to say that for me, my patience served me very, very, very well, incredibly
wow.
well. It's really, really been very valuable. It took me a long time to truly acquire it, but I always knew that I needed to. And I worked at it, worked at it, worked at it, worked at it. And I suffered from lack of patience, at least initially. I saw how not having patience really was like I was impatient to finish school, and it affected me. Yeah, it affected me. Patience truly a superpower. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Yeah. It just makes your life less stressful, you know. I mean, I could have enjoyed school a bit more, a lot more, if I had many patience to get out of it. Right? I would have had a somewhat different experience. Not that I didn't enjoy school, especially the last 2 years, uh, but I certainly could have enjoyed it a lot more. Yeah. But it wasn't an unproductive time. But yeah, you know, self-honesty, I cannot recommend this enough. You know, I made the programs like Way-Of-Impeccability, capitalized hearings, priority paradigm, nobility, all the different programs, right? There's many smaller ones also. And then later, you know, I would explain when new participants come, what's all needed, what's required. But then I put it into its own little mini program, right? How to do these programs. Because the way I do them is very different to any other way. It's interactive and the participant does it. You learning how to learn. There's no belief shared. You know, you're not being told you must do this, must do that. No, you're acquiring tools and you practice those tools and you apply those tools and then you develop skill with that tools where you can build your own ideology, your own belief system, your own sensibility, your own sobriety, etc., etc. At any rate, so I made up tasks, right? What are the requirements for the participant? Like one of the requirements is you're going to do repeat backs and takeaways and do the tasks and exercises and all stuff like that, right? Which is like sort of, okay, sort of in a way. All right, the repeat backs and takeaways, that's not typically part of taking a program. You know, answering the questions, usually there is, you know, I don't know. But still, way of impeccability, very, very different. But the number one requirement, the very first one that I require of a participant is honesty and self-honesty. If you truly want to change, and Way of Impeccability is a life change and a self-change program, truly, you are truly changing how you're going to live and how you're going to be. If you really, really, really want to do that, you have to be self-honest. And self-honesty carries over to honesty in general, but you know, honesty in the external world, sometimes you know, it has to, it gets affected by appropriateness. My famous example is if the murderer comes into my house wanting to murder my children, so where are the children? I'm lying like crazy. I'm going to be champion liar right there, right? Tell the murderer where my children are. So, you know, is that a lie or is that appropriateness? It's appropriateness. Yes,
Yes.
technically it's a lie, but we have to understand this, right? But internally, there's never a time when lying to yourself is appropriate. And not that I found, anyway. Beena, I just want to say hello to a whole bunch more people joining us on IG, which is fantastic, right?
Oh, yes.
Casey Parson is there, Show Unbound is there as well. And I think this is either David or Davida, I'm not sure. And then closed something or other, MBYLLUR. Oh, very interesting name. Anyway, just love it that you guys are here. Very cool. And please, always ask questions, make comments, tell me, hey, Syl, you're talking a lot of nonsense. Why are you saying that? That doesn't make any sense. Feel free, feel free, feel free. Truly, truly. And I will really take your comments seriously. Yeah. Even if you're a troll looking to bait me, I'll still take it seriously. Why? Because when you seriously answer questions like that, it reveals a lot.
Desperately waiting, eagerly waiting for something
Yeah.
happen.
It's all good, you know. It's all good, all good, all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
Beena,
so
please
we were
share.
busy
Please
in
share.
capital R reading. Yes, Don was working.
Yeah.
But of course, as always, we try to connect with, this is the intent behind this capital R reading. We want to meet and connect with Don Juan. Yes, the books are medium, and of course, Carlos is, of course, he did a very wonderful job by asking all the stupid, sometimes irrelevant, sometimes stupid questions, unnecessary questions, but it all works really well because
Oh, yeah.
people like we have no direct connectivity with him. So his questions are helping that self really continuously is that it is all working really fine and well. it is
Yeah.
coming, of course, as appropriate. But
Right. Not.
connecting with Don Juan is a big deal. Yes, sorry.
Oh no, carry on, carry on, carry on. It's okay. I thought you were done.
Okay, so connecting with Don Juan, this is our intent. So sometimes we just
Yeah.
go through and skip, not skipping, but just reading the process of okay, specific details of rituals and everything. But we do get stuck on the like, okay, oh, now we have to stop because this is something very profound.
Yeah.
This is connecting with the abstract. This is what the real crux of the
Yeah.
man of knowledge, okay, according to Don Juan is. And this
Yeah.
is what we are seeking because according to Don Juan himself, these all are mediums.
Yeah.
The real fruit is awareness, knowledge.
Exactly. And your way of living. Now, Don Juan calls it the warrior's way. Yeah. Way of impeccability. I prefer way of impeccability because, warrior has problems. I use that term, yes, but like a spirit warrior. I use it in way of
Yes.
impeccability, but not everybody is comfortable with it. Way of impeccability, this is easy to be comfortable with, but you must make your own language, your own terms. That's part of way of impeccability. You create your own dictionary of power. Yes, there's a way of impeccability dictionary of power, but each participant creates their own. You need to do this, just whether you're not doing way of impeccability or not. Create your own points of moreness. What makes Don Juan so special? I read all the classics when I was a young man. Right? All the classics I could get my hand on at the time were considered classics. There may be more now, but at least, like you say somebody in like, especially in English culture, I was classically educated. Well, all right, I classically educated myself. At any rate, Don Juan is unique in all of literature. Well, Don Gennaro also, but we see a lot of Don Gennaro, but not quite as much as Don Juan, not nearly as much. In this, that Don Juan is impeccable and he follows way of impeccability. He has discernment, he has awareness, he has understanding, he has application. Right? All of the points that we mentioned. Don Juan is a moreness individual. He's practicing moreness, he's living moreness. There's lots of depth in moreness. It's not so much about Don Juan's cosmology or Don Juan's spirituality, you could say, in modern language. That others, you'll see lots of what Don Juan says overlaps tremendously with Buddhist culture, which is very ancient, right? Different part of the world, but doesn't matter. His lineage goes all the way back to the Toltecs. A lot of people think it's what he's saying is Toltec stuff. No, he just started there. Some of it overlaps a little bit, yes, but it's part of his lineage. It's not Toltec, right? It's a very, very important point to understand. But my point is, Don Juan is very unique in this, that I've yet to see another character that practices and lives way of impeccability the way Don Juan does. Right? That does not operate
Wow.
according to the superiority paradigm. Nowhere.
Wow.
Nowhere. Nowhere. Yeah. Now, if I have not seen it and somebody can say, oh, but Syl, I've got an example for you. Please tell me. I do know of it, but that's where I've created it in my book series, right? In the Biala series. Biala and Ursula and the other aspirants and the other, they all practice way of impeccability. They follow along. But other than Don Juan and my own creations, I don't know. But anyway, yes, it's quite remarkable, Beena. Your astonishment is most appropriate. So please, I would love to know of other characters that follow this, right? And yes, you have characters, many characters in literature that have integrity, right? I'm not saying there are characters without integrity, which is a key part of way of impeccability, but it's not the only part, right? There's also the awareness, the discernment, especially, and then coming to understanding, and that understanding to the application, and to be unhooked from the superiority paradigm. There are many, many characters that have great integrity and they're very honorable, but they're still in some way hooked to the superiority paradigm, right? And they don't have that moreness that Don Juan has, which is again part of Moreness-Culture, the pursuit of moreness, right? I would love to know more. I would love to know more. It's been my life's quest since a young man, very literally, the pursuit of connecting to people who have this moreness, right? Who practice way of impeccability, yeah? Who live by it, and whatever idea, version, understanding of way of impeccability you might have, it's just my term for it. But who live according to this type of sobriety, yes, and I'm using sobriety in the pure sense of the term, yeah, not anything to do with alcohol, right? Yeah. So I look for people like
Yes.
this. I actively look for people like this. Yeah. And again, I connect to them via my own doings, like Sher, participants of the program. But I haven't yet found them in the wild, as it were. I'm sure they exist. I just haven't connected to them because I assume that, relatively, I feel I'm a big nincompoop, so, okay, people who are sensible according to how I would like to be sensible, they're like, yeah, all right, so, you go do all your stuff, whatever. And like, I'm probably a child to them. I don't know, maybe it's just my idea of things, but my humility, I have no idea. And that's how I feel, though. So still, I keep looking. I keep looking. Of course, I find it in Beena, magical moreness. Lots of it, lots of it. Yeah. So I'm just saying though, but again, when Beena, when we first met, uh, you can't say that you were the person that you are now, right? And you wouldn't necessarily want to go back to being that person, yes?
Of course. Of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, just important stuff to be aware of. That's all I'm saying. But this why Don Juan is so unique
Yes.
is, like I say, other than characters I've created, no one, I've never seen characters anywhere remotely close to that. Yeah. And that's a big deal. It's quite sad. And I looked at aspirations. Because yes, to have ambition is one thing, and there's a big difference between ambition and aspiration. And you ask people what are their ambitions, and then ask them right after they've told you all their ambitions, and what are your aspirations? Or it usually really floors them. Kind of, oh, and then in that moment they realize there's actually a difference between aspiration and ambition. And when they start to think about their aspirations, their ambitions start to implode. Quite fascinating, right? And when we really know this, understand this, figure this out, our lives change.
Yes.
Our lives change profoundly. And for me, it is a great ambition. Sorry, a great aspiration. It's never been. I never really had much ambitions, even though my mother ambition was like the most important thing ever. This was like the holy grail to be ambitious. This was like your best quality ever, was to be ambitious. I tried it, but no, it didn't work for me. Sorry. So what I'm saying is that with aspirations, when we aspire to moreness, changes everything. Absolutely changes everything. It's a very, very big deal. Very big deal. So pay attention to your aspirations. All right, we'll leave it there for today. Yes, Beena, please add more to what I'm saying, and then we'll wrap it up. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Fine has its their own standards and their own expectations about idea of moreness. It depends on where you are at your life. I feel that I look up to all of my friends, of course, especially most important, Syl, that I am a privileged one because I found that. Okay, sometimes I feel pity for him that okay he couldn't find that people, but I have people in my interactions, in my communication, that I can really see that okay how the mourners looks like, how they are, like sure, like other people in my life. This is also an outcome of my own intent. I
Oh,
always have and I always still have very selfish intent that yes, they have to suffer my nonsense, my incumbries. Okay, yes, and this is how I'm learning and growing. One, I'm lucky that they are very generous, very kind, very loving. But of course, you have to understand all the time your unawareness, your inquiry come into your face, even just the slightest ego in the sense don't want to be friend with those people who are more than them. It's a difficult thing. But for me, the charm of learning and growing is so huge, so scintillating that I could not even
Ah,
think
you're breaking
how
up,
I'm going to
Beena.
feel about like, okay, yes, what I'm here to learn. And this
I think we're about to lose
I'm waiting,
Beena.
sir.
This is oh no, I was saying you were breaking up quite a lot, so I couldn't hear what you were saying half the time there. Sorry. Say it
Oh,
again. Just
sorry.
wrap it up real quick,
Oh,
just to
sorry for my
so that it's
network.
not wasted. That's all right. Yeah, it's all right. That's all
Okay, I was just saying that okay, no, okay, I'm the lucky one. I never feel that okay, these people have so much, and they have such awareness and awareness and everything, because the charm of learning and growing is so sparkling, so beautiful for me that I could not even think about all these other things. Okay, yes, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to
right.
how I could learn if I would choose to be with people where I would be a hero. No, it is not going to happen. Get out of your comfort zone and get rid of this nonsense that, okay, oh, I have to prove myself. No, you don't need to prove yourself. When you are, once you set your intent to learn, to grow, no shame, no hesitation. Sorry, no
Exactly.
nonsense. That's it.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly. I have to
this
hang on,
is
I have
the
to
wrap
make a
up of today.
clarification. Yeah, hang on. I
Yes,
need to clarify though. Because Christopher
yes.
Abbott asks, was Sancho Panza from Don Quixote impeccable? Now I had to clarify what I said. When I was saying about Don Juan being unique, it's not that Don Juan has impeccability. Many characters have impeccability, but Don Juan has impeccability outside of the superiority paradigm. And that means Don Juan has impeccability and Moreness-Culture. Right now, he doesn't call it Moreness-Culture, but you'll see as you go along, you're going to see the Moreness and the Moreness-Culture, the application. So this is the key distinction, Christopher, that absolutely, yes, there are characters who have impeccability and apply impeccability and are impeccable, but they don't take it all the way. And that means they're still part of the prevailing superiority paradigm in very subtle ways. Well, another great character, to me, the actual hero. And it's not only me that thinks this, but when I read the story, I'm like, well, no, sorry. I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. Who's the hero of Lord of the Rings? You ask the average person who's aware of Lord of the Rings, they can tell you Frodo. No, no. Sam Gamgee is the actual hero. If it was up to Frodo, he actually failed. It was because of Sam Gamgee that the ring got destroyed. Frodo failed in his mission. Many times he would have failed if it hadn't been for Sam. But right at the very end, when they threw it into the pit of doom, right, Frodo wanted to hang on to it. It was Sam that actually made that thing happen. But and if you look at Sam, he's very impeccable, but he's still following in many ways the inadvertency of the superiority paradigm. It's very subtle, and I'll have to we have to read some of the book to point it out, but it's there, right? And I mean, just the fact that he was essentially, Frodo's servant. That's part of that logic, yeah. But inappropriate application of goodness. But Sam is a fantastic character. There are many such characters, but they don't have that that depth of where impeccability is taken all the way, right? Where you're pursuing learning, growth, awareness as far as it can go. And that's what makes Don Juan unique, right? It is this combination of the impeccability and Moreness culture, and the pursuit of learning and growing as far as you can go. And that's very unique, right? I mean, there are many scholars, yes, but again, look at their character and look at the breadth of their awareness. There's no comparison whatsoever, right? Very important, very helpful. So yeah, many characters to learn from. Samwise Gamgee, exactly. Samwise, the real hero. And it's very good to read that again, and look at, especially if you read the book, because the movie, yeah, they do quite show it, but you know, and you know what really gives that, or that when you really want to understand my point, look at the very end, which they don't always show in the movies or whatever, but at the end of the story, when after the celebration, yes, where the elves are preparing to go to across the ocean to some other place, and they invite Frodo to go with some. It's like a spiritual, mystical place, and they invite Frodo to go with, and he does go with them, but Frodo's quite depressed in that time after the celebration, even during the celebration, where they, celebrating Sam's the big hero, everybody singing his praises. He's depressed. Why? Because he's uncomfortable, because he knows it's not true. He goes along with it because it's too much of a hassle. It will be too much stress and bother to explain, well, it wasn't actually me, I actually failed. So he has to go. He has to leave. Very powerful. Yeah. Again, when we read with discernment, we see more. It's right there in the story. It's right there in the story. But it gets missed because we subscribe to typical ideas. Oh, everybody wants to be the hero. Frodo's supposedly the hero. He's not actually. Right? So be careful of your ambitions, because you may end up like Frodo. Yeah, yeah. Sad character, in other words, Frodo. I mean, he's a hero in the sense that his suffering sort of led to a lot. But, yeah, not really. Very important to look beyond. All right, Beena, we can wrap it up there. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Yes,
I love
yes,
it. I love
yes.
it. And
Thank
thank
you.
you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much for joining us, Christopher. And thank you so much for joining us. Many people on Instagram, by the way, and of course, Sher.
Uh,
And Norma, I was missing you, okay, and your comments. And
yes, we
Joseph,
miss you,
yes,
Norma.
I was missing
Yes, we miss you. But
you.
it's
No
Sunday, and
expectations,
I
but
think
yes,
Norma gets together
yes,
with her children and stuff on
yes. Again,
Sundays.
no expectations, but it's still, we are just telling you that we were thinking about you. So yes, you are always welcome here, both Joseph and Norma. And yes, so we are going to continue from tomorrow again. Don Juan's book and via Carlos. We will do capital R reading with the intent of meeting and connecting with Don Juans and
Yes,
understanding the real essence, not
yes,
getting in like okay, really delusional about the details. And of course, mediums can vary, as Don Juan is saying. Of course, he could
exactly.
use astrology, he could use magic, he could use
He
plants or
does.
trees,
He
and of
uses
course,
all
animals
sorts
or
of
any
stuff.
other.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. So yes, they are important for some people. If whoever wants to pursue that, they are important. I'm not negating the value, but the real essence is to be the man of knowledge in his words, or a
exactly.
person of knowledge.
Person of
This is
knowledge.
the real crux. Yes, real the crux. This is the real
Yeah,
crux of the whole capital R reading project for this. Anyway, so
yeah,
thank you so much for joining us, everyone, here on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok. Whenever you find this video clips of us here on YouTube, on Facebook, or Instagram, or TikTok, please, if you like it, if you see that okay, there is some value in it, do click like and also subscribe. By doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm that this tiny channel is bringing some goodness and value into my life, and I want more
yeah,
value and goodness
yeah,
like this in my life. Because ultimately, your online algorithm is going to affect your life algorithm. This is the new
yes,
world we are living in. Please do pay attention to
yes.
every nutritional value, even with your mind, and of course for your eyes, that what
Bye.
you are ingesting, what you are
Bye.
taking in. Thank you so much for joining us. See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah,
Bye for
yeah,
now.
yeah. And right there, the world does not work the way we think it does. Our world
Exactly.
works according to the algorithm of emphasis and attention. I'll leave that.
Yes,
I'll leave that with you.
absolutely.
chew on that one.
Yes.
Very powerful. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye, bye-bye,
Bye for
bye-bye.
now.
End live video.